Alright guys, it's Gerdat14 here with another game review. This will be my second one, and today we are reviewing Dragon Quest Monsters Joker 2. The reason why I haven't been actually updating AOS lately is because I am lazy, been playing this game and doing stuff for the podcast with the rest of the group. So, yeah, here we go. Dragon Quest Monsters is a well-established franchise from Square Enix and I think Bird Project, and their Joker side series has been relatively well received by the Dragon Quest community. In this game, instead of playing as you are still technically a human character, but the human characters aren't really important in this game. As you all know, Dragon Quest and Dragon Warrior both have an astonishing amount of diverse monsters that you can fight throughout your travels, and that's what this game focuses on, the creatures themselves. The Dragon Quest Monsters series is famous for allowing the player to tame these monsters, just like Pokemon, and use them to battle other creatures, and use them to battle other scouts in this game. Again, very similar to Pokemon. However, these games tend to be more along the lines of directly influence the fate of the world, as opposed to, oh my god, you have to go and collect everything. You really don't need to collect all the monsters in this game, although if you do, congrats to you. I tip all of my hats to you, even though I own very few of them. This game, I'm not entirely sure what to feel about this game because I'm just coming out of this one. I just beat this one like an hour ago, and I'm like 38 hours into the game. My main praises for this game is that the monster selection in this game is huge, as it is in all of the Dragon Quest monster games. Seriously, go play Dragon Quest Monsters 1 on the Game Boy, and there is just so many monsters that you can get and tame and breed to. The library in this is just so huge. My other main praise for this game is how exactly everything looks and feels. This definitely feels like a throwback to Dragon Quest Monsters 2, which is a game that I played as a kid and freaking loved. I played Dragon Quest Monsters 2 over a spring vacation one time, and that was pretty much the only thing I did all over spring break. Sure, I was playing a few other games as well, but during the car ride to and from the spring break spot, I was just playing that constantly. I didn't even really sleep that much during those car trips, which is what you're supposed to do with 18 hours. Long car trips, people. Very long. But, I really do love the Dragon Quest Monsters games. I've only actually played Dragon Quest Monsters 2 and this one, so I'm not entirely, able to criticize the other ones, although I did play a little bit of Dragon Quest Monsters 1. I found that I liked it, but I didn't like the way I was actually playing it, so I ended up dropping it. But yeah, the library in this game is amazing, and it definitely feels like one of the older titles. The story in this game actually does take a front seat in terms of what you're actually supposed to do. Whereas Dragon Quest Monsters 2 also had a front seat story, this one has a front seat story that is, although it's technically very basic, but still, it's interesting to actually go through and see what develops, because very few things actually do develop in this story. Our nameless hero is also mute, of course. He's always mute. I don't understand why. Actually, I think in Dragon Quest Monsters 2, whichever version you had, both the protagonists actually had voices. I'm not entirely sure, though. There wasn't voice acting or anything, but they at least spoke at times. At least I think so. But we don't really speak in this game, and so it makes interacting with the other characters somewhat less than important. Our other characters that are coming around this time are our Captain Mayday. He's a relatively cool guy. He is flying the airship Albatross to the Monster Scout tournament, and unfortunately, our story starts out that we are broke. We are. We have 0 GP, but we have a scout ring, so we want to get over to the Monster Scout Challenge to see if we can actually do anything. The problem with this, of course, is that, well, we're broke, so we can't really afford the airfare. So we, being, RPG heroes and deciding that we can do anything that we want, decide to hide in a crate that is being boarded upon the Albatross. So we are stowaways. Yay! And we are discovered quite quickly by Captain Mayday and his engine room friend, Rory Bellows. Yeah, these characters have really, really cliched names. Yes, Rory Bellows is a rather gruff and hardened engineer for the Albatross, a good friend of Captain Mayday for, I believe, the game says 25 years at one point. And he's a relatively cool guy. But to continue on with the story, you are discovered by Mr. Bellows. At least I think, is it by Mr. Bellows or is it by? It might actually be by Countess. It's been a while since I played the intro, so. And Countess is the monster and plot device for this game to another character who is incredibly peppy, and she's not peppy but preppy rather. Like she's seriously way too high class to be aboard this ship. She complains pretty much all the way through. I don't even remember what her actual name is. Kinda sad. Oh well. Anyway, during the flight, something goes wrong in the engine room, and you end up crashing on this mysterious island. And this is where we're not introduced to, but we get to actually interact with a few of our other characters, mainly Archie Log. Yes, Archie is an archaeologist, and he is trying to study more about monsters, which is why he's on the plane to the Monster Scout tournament. He and Rory Bellows are the first two passengers that you end up rescuing after commandeering a monster from the monster pen in the back of the Albatross. And from there, the story takes you on. The story starts off really formulaic. You rescue crew members in this area, then you are allowed access to the next area. After rescuing crewmasters or talking to enough people, you are allowed to progress to the next area after completing certain objectives. It goes on and on like this, and after rescuing all the crew members, the story really does start to fall flat. Well, not necessarily fall flat, but it becomes, oh my God, you must save the island, and it gets very cliched from there. So yeah, the story elements in this game are not too bad, but are not too great rather, but they're not bad enough to actually criticize down to they're just plain bad. I found myself actually enjoying this story enough to keep actually trying to progress through to see what was going to happen next. But in the back of my mind, realizing it didn't frickin' matter because I already almost knew what was going to happen next. It's relatively predictable, including the people that you end up saving. Although I gotta say, the plot twist at the end, although isn't entirely, it's not entirely from nowhere, because it doesn't happen totally out of nowhere, but it's still kind of unique what they did with it, but it's still really lazy. That pretty much covers it for the story elements. Visually, this game is actually rather impressive, although thanks to my machine, I have issues running it at full frames. Kind of sad, I know. I need to upgrade my machine. But all in all, the visuals in this game are really nice. They're not necessarily bright and vibrant, but they're bright and vibrant enough to make it so that you can actually see what you're doing. One of the main flaws that I saw other reviewers hitting on was the fact that it's very difficult to actually see your way around the map, and although this is most definitely true, the camera controls in this are horrendous. It wasn't so bad that I was always stumbling around. I would stumble around occasionally, but I never felt like I was really lost. I was just having difficulty getting to where I needed to be. So yeah, graphically, this is an alright game when you just on graphics alone. Soundtrack. The soundtrack in this game, it really reminds me of a lot of Dragon Quest Monsters 2. I think that's what they were going for. I'm not entirely sure, mind you, but I think that's what they were going for. Because I recognize quite a few tracks from Dragon Quest Monsters 2, like the main home theme from the home theme that plays in Albatross. I think the Monster Pen theme is also played in Dragon Quest Monsters 2, and I'm pretty sure even the world map themes are played to some extent in Dragon Quest Monsters 2. I love that game so much. It's a shame that I can't really get myself to go back and play it, because I would, but I really can't seem to get myself to do so. Sadness for me. Let's see what else. I guess I'll dive into gameplay. The gameplay in this is very, very much a throwback to the older Dragon Quest Monsters games, and I'm not entirely sure if it's a throwback or if it's just how these games work. Again, only really played 2 of them, but going into combat, really, as opposed to just general gameplay. In order to control your monsters, you can actually order them around in order to do specific things. Like you can have a monster use attacks on a specific monster on the field, or you can have them use skills on specific monsters. But in order to make this game go a little bit faster, the game also has the tactics feature, which allows you to, set up tactics under 4 general categories, and your monsters will behave according to those tactics. They are Don't Show Mercy, which allows your monsters to use any skills that they have that would actually increase their damage and hopefully go against targets that would definitely benefit the battle. Mix It Up, which allows your monsters to use stat buffs and stat debuffs on your opponents in order to make the battle easier for your other monsters. And Focus on Healing, which will allow your monsters to seriously just focus on using restorative skills on your monsters if they actually need it. If they're like under half or under a quarter HP, they'll start doing healing skills. And then the final one is Don't Use Any Magic, which will seriously just have them do normal attacks. They'll still normal attack strategically, like if a monster has just received damage and is about ready to die, they'll go and attempt to finish it. They won't just randomly attack anything that they choose. They even commune with each other if you're actually using the tactics feature. I noticed this. Because let's say during the turn that you have switched tactics, your opponent was able to get down one of your monsters to low health. Well, instead of actually attacking that turn, if you switched over to Focus on Healing, they will actually use one of their heal skills on the ally. It's really cool, actually. I enjoy seeing AI that is smart enough to adjust to the actual battle going around. One of my main problems with the combat system is the scout challenges themselves. The monster scout challenges themselves have the annoying thing of not allowing you to use orders. Now, normally this wouldn't be such a big deal, as I have my monsters on pretty much Show No Mercy anyway, because again, I was able to beat the game recently, pretty much only using that tactic. So it took me a long time, though. Hey. But using that, I was using the inability to use orders during the Monster Scout challenges makes it so you can't specifically tell your monsters, "Hey, I want you to focus on this guy because he is a legitimate threat." Instead, they'll end up focusing on somebody else who you think isn't actually nearly as big a threat as someone else. I think they'll usually target based on HP numbers, which is lame, but it makes sense, The lower HP that they have, the easier they are to take down. Although it still actually does factor in defense, and your monsters are smarter than you are, I promise you this. But as far as combat goes, I found the combat in this game to be repetitive, but not in a bad way. Because the way that you end up going through combat, it's very much like a traditional RPG. You make all the plans for your turn, and then they actually do them. So yeah, it's very much a turn-based RPG in this regard, but that's not a bad thing. I found myself enjoying the combat through most of it while I was playing it. Another gameplay gimmick well, not necessarily gimmick, but feature of this entire series of games is the ability to fuse and or breed your monsters together. Fusing monsters together is incredibly it's how you progress through the game, because monsters have different class rates in this game. I'm not entirely sure if these are left over from the last game or not, but monster classes go F, E, D, C, B, A, S, X, and I don't know what comes after that. I know that there are probably a few after that, but to be honest, I found that the class system in this game really hurt a lot of the monsters that I wanted to use. For example, in Dragon Quest Monsters 2, one of my favorite monsters to use was Blizzardy, because Blizzardy was a bird, so it had really fast growth, and it also got access to a certain spell called White Air, which is pretty much Ice Breath in this game. And what White Air was a very high level ice elemental attack. And if you did your breeding right, you could get your Blizzardy to have both White Air and what was the other one? White Fire. I'm not entirely sure what the other skill was called, but pretty much you could have your Blizzardy with both of the elemental breath attacks that were just, they would destroy pretty much anything if you knew what you were doing, and it was awesome to have that kind of damage output. In this game, however, not only is Blizzardy not really here, well, at least not in this one. I think Professional actually maximizes the monster list. Pretty much, you should probably go play Professional if you're gonna play this game, because I think the story is the same, but the monster list is actually expanded a bit, and that's the real main pull of this game. I found that the class system really did hurt a lot of monsters, because in Dragon Quest Monsters 2, since there wasn't a class system, as long as you kept breeding your monsters, they would become incrementally more powerful as the game went on, and you could have, a certain skill set that you wanted to pass on to your monster, and it would keep that skill set as long as you wanted to keep it. And it was really cool. You could have, your main damage dealer also have a few healing skills or buffing skills, and he would be on his own almost invincible. But with 3 of those monsters, you dominated all of the in-game stuff. Now, I was never actually very competitive with these games, and there is multiplayer to be found here, especially with Wi-Fi on the DS. Yes, this game is for the DS. And if you are interested with that stuff, good luck, because some of these players out here, even though I wasn't actually able to fight them, I know that some of these players out here have spent months, well, it's kind of a new game, so not necessarily months, but at least a few weeks on their teams already, and they've got some super powerful teams. I think one of the famous teams right now involves using either Captain Crow or S-Dark or one of the other really hard to get Class S monsters, and just dominating the entire field with his skill set. Personally, I'm not devoted enough to this game to do it. I got to the post game, and I'm like, okay, I need to resynthesize monsters, but I just beat the main storyline. I don't really want to get into the rest of the monster library. Because in all seriousness, I didn't even finish the monster library in Dragon Quest Monsters 2, mainly because I didn't care enough. And that is seriously a problem that I have with these games. Well, with this game in particular, thanks to the class system. There are monsters that are most certainly better than others, and in order to capitalize on that, you have to know what the synthesizing chains are, and without a guide, you're not finding this out. There are a few in-game tips to help you out. For example, when you actually get the synthesizing thing, it will tell you if your rank will go up, or you could observe the monster to see if your rank is going to go down. But other than that, there's no real way to make sure that you're doing this right, and that is definitely a problem in this game. I found that the easiest way for this to work was make sure that your main team has got attack, defense, either attack, defense, and wisdom, or agility, attack, and wisdom. A level 1 boost on have your 3 main monsters with between level 1 and 3 boost of all of those, and you should be fine throughout most of the game. But there are still some points where it gets really bad, especially if you don't have high wisdom. Certain boss monsters in this game will wreck you up if you don't have high defense or high wisdom, and it gets pretty bad. Another thing that is famous about these games is the inclusion of the metals. Well, not the inclusion of, rather, but the metal slimes. And the slime family is, of course, the most popular, the most famous family in the Dragon Quest games. I don't know why. It's mad at best. But the metal slimes are required for a lot of the rarer synthesizing chains, and there are skills to help you get these guys. But at the same time, metal slimes are worth a ton of experience. Like the first metal slime that you encounter is worth like 50 experience and you're level 1. So at 50 experience, you'll gain like between 3 and 5 levels from one freaking fight if you can manage to kill him. The problem with this, of course, is that metal slimes also have very high agility, only take between 1 and 3 points of damage per shot, depending on your attack skill, on your attack stat, and have a tendency to flee very, very successfully. And it gets annoying trying to hunt down these guys just to have them flee. There are items to help you use, like pretty pebbles and pinballs, but pinballs in particular are so rare that I found myself running out of these near the end of the game, simply because, oh my god, there's a liquid metal slime up there. He's worth 10,000 experience if you manage to successfully kill him. And 10,000 experience towards the end of the game is almost a guaranteed level up, regardless of your monster level. And I'll waste 2 pinballs on him, and then next turn he's gone, because either I screwed up with my attack command or I'm simply not doing enough damage in order to take him down. And that definitely is a problem that I've got. Mind you, farming the metal slimes in this game is clearly the easiest way to level up and gain experience, because the metal slimes aren't hard to fight, mind you, but they're definitely hard to take down. Overall, the gameplay experience in this is really good, and it is something that I would consider coming back to, but I really don't want to get into the post-game. I might start over, actually do a proper synth chain, but I really, really don't want to get into the post-game stuff and get all my monsters up to rank S, and then try and take down the side bosses and such. I beat the game. The second to last boss was most definitely a challenge, but at the same time, he was really easy, comparatively speaking, because I kind of have a funny story about this. I never went above Class C for my entire game, and for my encounter with Malevolent Links, I had a puppeteer, a sea urchin, and a calamari kid. 2 of those monsters are rank F, and 1 of them is a rank C. But my puppeteer was able to survive through all of his attacks relatively simply, thanks to the fact that I was specializing in defense, and thanks to the fact that I was specializing in physical defense on that guy. And because of the fact that I had the enfeebler skill set on him, that's a complaint I'll get into in a moment. I was able to just use Puppeteer, make sure I used a special medicine every turn, and when I actually had him weakened down thanks to Enfeebler, I would revive one of my guys, and at the very end, I took down Leonix using pretty much only 1 monster. It was a long battle, sure, but I was still able to do it using only 1 monster. It was both really cool and very disappointing at the same time. The story boss fights in this game aren't actually that hard once you figure out that you can, nerf the bosses and, take them down to your level, technically. Yeah, one of the main things I have a problem with is how skill progression works in this game. Unlike in Dragon Quest Monsters 2, where monsters had a certain skill tree, and by breeding monsters you could fuse those trees together, but you only had a certain number of slots. This game takes that formula and maxes it out. Instead of having 10 different individual skills that your monster can have or learn at any time, every monster, well, most of the monsters in game only have 3 skill slots. I will grant that the two and 3 space monsters have between 4 and 5 skill slots, but seriously, 1 space monsters, the kind that you'll be using throughout most of the game, only have 3, and this is a serious problem when it comes to actually trying to grind up stats. Because like I said, you're going to need attack, agility, and either defense or wisdom on all of your guys, and that's all 3 of your skill slots. To balance this out, they made it so that the basic stat improvements can be mastered, and then you can level them up from there. But even then, it's definitely iffy to max these skills out because you're not entirely sure if you want to or not. But the easiest for people that are just going to come into this game, not having actually played Dragon Quest Monsters before, here's what I recommend. I recommend getting a team that all 3 guys have attack boost. This will make it so that regardless of how slow or fast or how weak their defenses are, they can pretty much take down anything in their path and make sure that they keep attack boost throughout all of their synths. Because that base improvement in attack will definitely show up later, and it is amazing how high you can get your attack with that. And I recommend abusing one of the other features of this game, which is the ability to have substitute monsters. You can have 3 substitute monsters with you at all times. I recommend really early on getting 3 heal slimes and just keeping them on as your sub monsters. This is because heal slimes have really good MP and also have the health professional trait, which reduces the cost of healing skills and increases their effect. So right now I've got Tent, my heal slime, in my substitute. He can cast Mega Heal, which heals anywhere between 150 to 250 points of damage for 5 MP. And I can sit there and spam that outside of combat to heal up all of my monsters if I want to. Yeah, it's a really cheesy way to go through this game technically, but it's something that I definitely recommend for people who are just coming in. So all in all, I really did enjoy playing this game. I'm not sure if I'm going to come back to it, but I'm definitely sure that I want to come back to it. It's one of those things where if I do come back to it, I'm going to try something different, and there is a lot of replayability with this because of the sheer amount of monsters that you can get in this game. If you want to limit yourself and do an all slime run, go for it. I encourage you to try that. I don't think you'll last very long, mind you, because my favorite monster family from Dragon Quest Monsters 2 was Bird, Bug, and Plant, because the Bird, Bug, and Plant monster trees were guaranteed to have incredibly fast growth rates, whereas Slime, Dragon, and Material, these had much slower growth rates in comparison, so you didn't get stats nearly as quickly, or it just didn't really work that well when it came down to it. I guess I need to actually go over one other thing: scouting monsters. The scouting monsters I don't actually agree with. I preferred the old method of just throwing meat at them, and then if you throw enough meat at them, they will actually try to join you at the end of the battle, and then you still get experience for that battle. I'll agree that scouting is a much cleaner way to do it, because sometimes you'll screw up on the fight and end up recruiting the wrong monster. But in all seriousness, it's never really the fact that scouting ends a successful scouting ends the fight immediately and you don't get experience for it really dragged me down a bit, because my my best method for successful scouting was to take out the 2 monsters that I didn't want, and then try and scout the 1 monster that I did want. It's mainly the reason I didn't get into the higher monsters, mind you, because, you know, I wasn't scouting right off the back like I should have been. Still, I found it a lot easier because you can fail at scouting, and one of 2 things will happen. Either nothing will happen, and they'll say they're weighing things up a bit, or they'll take offense, meaning the scout option is blocked for the rest of the fight, and if you did it on a turn where they can act, they'll actually do additional damage to you, and it gets risky at that point. I don't like trying to scout monsters when they can act that turn, because it's like, well, if I'm not guaranteed to get it, then they're probably going to take some significant damage this turn, and I'm not into that. All in all, I really did enjoy this game, and I might come back to it. I most definitely will come back to it with different expectations, though. This is most certainly a good game, and I recommend you guys go out and try it. But I do not recommend you try this alone. Get yourself a walkthrough. Try getting a few of the synth chains done, and see how much fun you can have with it when you actually know what you're doing. This is definitely a game that requires multiple playthroughs, if not at least help, in order to enjoy fully. Anyway, this is Gerdat14 signing off. Be safe, guys. See you guys next time, and I hope to get Aria of Sorrow up soon.